afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Welcome to the International Capital of Culture, Food, and Food Innovation. This summit goal is to identify and build future leaders. That's why we chose to open every conference at this summit with young people. This conference will provide an opportunity for them to share their views, their dreams, and together we will hear them and we can shape it. When farmers plant seeds in the ground, they know that their children will actually cultivate the trees exactly as their ancestors did before them, and their offspring will do after them, building a legacy for every generation to follow and to cherish. Once again, Milan is the capital of food and food innovation, thanks to Seeds&Chips, the Global Food Innovation Summit. Food security, new food production techniques, nutrition of the future, and the right to health, sustainable, and accessible food will be at the center of this summit and addressed during this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to welcome our honored guest. As you know, we spoke earlier about legacy, a legacy we leave for our children. The values they inherit from all of us, and hopes we pass on to them. For millions around the world, our speaker remains the very embodiment of hope and the symbol of the successful accomplishments that are possible when we begin with hope. He is simply the most transformative, inspirational, and successful leader of our lifetime. He inspired millions of people, generations, to take their destiny into their own hands, to change the world, and to get involved in the decision-making of their own future. He speaks a different language and paints a more optimistic picture of our future. He offers a vision of our world and for our children, where our differences are what unite us and what makes us one. A vision that transcends ethnicity, color, skin tone, gender, nationality, where our values in this vision is what bind us in humanity.
That we, the people, through the instrument of our democracy, can form a more perfect union. Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women. We need your enthusiasm, we need your energy, we need your imagination. Good afternoon. And the Global Innovation Summit. I want to thank Rula for the kind introduction and Morgan for the outstanding leadership that she is already showing. We're here to Milan, and I promise you that we're going to be coming to Italy a lot in the years to come. Will be immune from the impacts of climate change. We're already experiencing it in America, where some cities are seeing floods on sunny days, where wildfire seasons are longer and more dangerous, where in our Arctic state, Alaska, We're seeing rapidly eroding shorelines and glaciers that are receding at a pace that is unseen in modern times. Over my 8 years in office, we dramatically increased our generation of clean energy. We acted dramatically to curtail our use of dirty energy, and we invested in energy efficiency across the board. In Paris, working with people like Matteo, we helped to lead the world to the first significant global agreement for a low-carbon future. But here's the thing, even if every country somehow puts the brakes on the emissions that exist today, climate change would still have an impact on our world for years to come. Our changing climate is already making it more difficult to produce food. We've already seen shrinking yields and spiking food prices that in some cases are leading to political instability. And when most of the world's poor work in agriculture, the stark imbalances that we've worked so hard to close between developed and developing countries will be even tougher to close. The costs will be borne by people in poor nations that are least equipped to handle it. In fact, some of the refugee flows into Europe originate not only from conflict, but also from places where there are food shortages that will get far worse as climate change continues. So, if we don't take the action necessary to slow and ultimately stop these trends, the migration that has put such a burden on Europe already will just continue to get worse. Now the good news is that there are steps we can take that will make a difference. In the United States, we have been able to bring our emissions down even as we grow our economy. The same is true in many parts of Europe. And there is an added bonus to acting on climate change because our existing food system is, in fact, a significant contributor to climate change. Food production is the second leading driver of greenhouse gas emissions, second only to energy production. And if we don't change course, the World Bank predicts that by 2050, agriculture and land use change may account for as much as 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But as I said, we have already identified ways in which we can address this challenge. We know it's possible. Emissions from food production and agriculture are still growing significantly, and with the world's population expected to reach 9 billion by the middle of the century, now is the time for us to act. The path to a sustainable food future will require unleashing the creative power of our best scientists and engineers and entrepreneurs, backed by public investment and private investment to deploy new innovations and climate-smart agriculture. Better seeds, better storage, crops that grow with less water, crops that grow in harsher climates, mobile technologies that put more agricultural data, including satellite imagery and weather forecasts and market prices, into the hands of farmers so that they know when to plant and where to plant, what to plant, and how it will sell. All these things can help to make sure that food security exists in poor countries, but it can also help us assure that in producing the food that we need to feed the billions of people on this planet, that we're not destroying the planet in the process. Now, part of this is also going to be wasting less food, especially in the United States, where we can waste up to 40%, especially when nearly 800 million men, women, and children worldwide face the injustice of chronic hunger and malnutrition. We have to create a food culture that encourages a demand for healthier, more sustainable food. Sam was a leader in this, working with my wife Michelle in their Let's Move program. And in fact, by working with schools, businesses, and local leaders across America, Let's Move actually helped bring down America's obesity rates for our youngest kids for the first time in 30 years. In fact, making sure people have healthy food to eat alleviates a lot of the medical costs that we're seeing increasing in the advanced world. And if we are able to reduce our healthcare costs, that in turn will put the ability for us to divert those resources into further relieving poverty in many parts of the world. When families get the nourishment that they need, we see education outcomes rise, we see healthcare costs fall, we see economic activity improve, and when in the United States the number one disqualifier for military service is obesity, we might even be able to strengthen our security as well. So the good news is that because of the work of many of you, the innovations that you are already investing in, we're starting to see a better way to feed a growing planet, combat hunger and malnutrition, put healthy food on the table, save our environment. And none of this is impossible. We can look at the successes that we've already made. In just the past decade, the number of undernourished people in the world is down by more than 160 million. You think about the achievements of the Green Revolution, which put hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. If you look at microfinance, an area where my mother devoted herself in developing nations, rural poor have been empowered. If you look at the expansion of education, especially for girls, the power of vaccines to eliminate smallpox, to reduce the incidence of measles and pneumonia, we've saved lives of hundreds of millions of people worldwide. You look at the progress we've made with HIV/AIDS, which has brought us to the point where we can, for the first time, imagine the real possibility of an AIDS-free generation. All this tells us that if we seize the future, there's nothing we cannot do. I do not believe that any part of the world has to be condemned to perpetual poverty and hunger, and I do not believe that this planet is condemned to ever-rising temperatures. I believe these are problems that were caused by man and they can be solved by man. We can unleash the change that reduces hunger and malnutrition. We can spark the growth that will release nations from poverty, and we can reverse the tides of climate change and usher in a smarter and more sustainable world.
And